Do you still need a good address to get bank accounts and companies set up in the US? Well, in this video, I'm going to go over the different types of personal and business addresses. I'm going to give you the pros and cons of each one. I'm going to share client experiences that we've encountered going through these different processes, some of the different banks that you can work with, and share stories. So if you're thinking about opening accounts in the US and you're not from the US specifically, you have accounts, you want to know how they're going to work based on the addresses you're using from that perspective, that context, definitely put on your seatbelt. We're going to be talking about it in this video. I'm James Baker. I'm an international tax consultant and we help clients do this every day. Set up companies, get the right banks open. I just put out a bank video and I wanted to comment more about the addresses. I still get comments and views on the old addresses video, 6 ways to get a US address that came out. I still think it's a good video. It still holds up. I'm gonna hit on some of those points. I'm gonna try and keep this concise for you. Do you still need a good address? There's personal addresses and there's business addresses. A personal address is going to be a residential address. It's coded residential. It's a house. It's an apartment building. A business address is going to be a warehouse or a commercial coded building. The businesses are all code. They have Google Maps. They have map softwares. Everything's on the Google Map. If you Google an address in the US, you can look at it from the street and see what it is. Residential is really going to be residentially coded places or houses. This has been something that's not necessary, our service for helping clients open bank accounts and get stuff set up in the US. And I'm going to go through the list of the types of addresses. But the business address is something that also isn't always necessary, but there's 4 different types. I got 4 different options on here for residential addresses in the US and why you need them. Really, the residential addresses for opening personal bank accounts in the US. If you want to come to the US and open an account at a personal bank, Chase, Bank of America, Truist is always a good one I've recommended in the past for personal accounts specifically, and you're not an American, what they want is a US residential address. They don't need to prove you live here. You don't need a visa, but they want to see a residential address, ultimately residentially coded. So number 1 preferred option is going to be friend or family or your own house if you have a house. If you have a house for rent, you could use that one. It's fine. But friend or family. And the pros of that is that it's a real address and it's probably not burned. It's probably a good address. The cons are you have to involve your friends or family. Ideally, you have parents or someone or like good friends. What I tell my clients is mail them a really nice basket and say, hey, I got this basket. I'm going to use your address for a bank account. If I get any mail, throw it in the basket, but otherwise use it as a decoration. That's what I tell clients all the time. Buy them a nice basket and put a card in the basket, we send it to them. I don't know. That's generally the best option. You're not going to get, if you do it right, you don't get a lot of mail. You're just going to get your debit cards when you open the account. And you really need it for credit cards too. You need a personal address for credit cards in the US. It makes it so much easier to move through that, to do it that way. I mean, the pros are it's going to be a good address. The cons are you have to involve someone else. You have to talk to someone. You have to explain what you're doing. Or you might not know anybody, which is another con. I was thinking about potentially having some kind of service where we connect Americans to foreign people so they can use addresses, but it's been really complicated. Let's go through second option, a foreign actual address. Some banks will accept a foreign address. You can tell them, hey, I live in Uzbekistan. I don't have an address here. Some will work with you, but it's not very common. It works for some of the banks we refer to. We refer clients to private banks, and some of these banks, as part of our service, they will open accounts for people, personal accounts, with a foreign address. It's not super common, but we can get that solved for them as a service. And some banks will do this. It's just not very common, and it's not banks everywhere. If you go to the middle of Mississippi, I'll bet a fair amount of money that you won't be able to figure this out without any kind of address. Okay. Number 3. A good option, Anytime Mailbox virtual address. So if you go to Anytime Mailbox, I talked about this on the 6 ways to get a US address video. Let's see if they put it there. It's a good video. Control click, so it goes to the next tab. You can watch it next. If you go to Anytime Mailbox and then you go to smarty.com, you can put an address in there and see if it's residential or commercially coded. Again, I talk about it in this other video. I don't want to go to it in this one. A sweet spot. I found one in Florida that was residentially coded. It was not a P.O. box. You cannot use P.O. boxes. They stink. P.O. box is not good. I found one on Anytime Mailbox. I signed up. It was fine. It was complicated for me because I live in the US to use an address that doesn't match anything. So it was complicated for me, but it was coded the right way, and I'm sure it would work for clients. And I might actually reuse it for someone on my team. We'll try it out. But that's like a great option. But the con is it's hard to get set up. It's hard to find one that works, and you have to spend a lot of time working. There's some certain tools and ways you can pull the data, but you want it to be coded residential and you want it to be coded non-CMRA, not commercial, if you can. And then the last option here is going to be a service like True Residence, where you're essentially renting an apartment. They have security deposits, $400 a month. Could essentially work great, but it's going to be very expensive. It's like managed mail. It's shy of renting your own place. The problem with renting your own place, which I guess would be number 5, would be you need someone to pick up the mail. So then you have to pay rent, find someone to pick up the mail. It's complicated. So you need essentially to have friends or family or some kind of virtual service where they do the mail for you because you're not going to be here. If you're going to need debit cards, credit cards, it could work. I guess the last option could be like if you're temporarily at a place, if you rent a place for a month, you use that for the mail and you have access to that mail. You could potentially make that work, especially if you're opening a couple accounts, get all the debit cards, turn off the mail so that it's all e-statements. Then you have your statements, you're fine, but then the cards expire. I'm going through this with a client right now. His card expired. It's been 3 years, 4 years, and his card expired. He need a new card. Now we're going through this, and how is he getting the card? It's annoying. So I've talked a lot about personal addresses. Comment below and let me know what your address, what your situation is with the personal addresses. Now I want to jump over to the business addresses and the different types and the ranking of them. So when you have an LLC, it's a business. You have the mailing address. You have a registered agent who's like the person who receives service, like if you get sued. And then you have the mailing address for the business, which you can also use the registered agent's mailing address. You have to pay for that. It's usually very cheap, but everyone knows it's a registered agent address and it doesn't really work as a real business address. It's complicated for getting things open. Now, certain banks are allowing you to do it this way. Certain banks are, like Mercury, allows you to use a registered agent address, but you have to show your foreign personal address to get a Mercury LLC bank account open. It's been kind of the same for RelayFi, and Wise has also been kind of the same, where they're actually leaning into the registered agent, but they want to prove more where you're actually working, which is going to be your home address. It's been a little bit of a shift for Relay and for Wise, but it's kind of been this way for Mercury for a while. These are the only 3 banks that really do it this way. Other banks are going to generally want a better address. So that gets us down to the next, a little bit better than registered agent address, is a virtual address, which often will show up as a registered agent address because of how many times it's used. There's a lot of virtual address services. You do not want a PO box. Ideally, you want to avoid a registered agent, and you can find a virtual address solution that's competitively priced that isn't a registered agent or a PO box, again, on Anytime Mailbox, on different services, but they're generally going to be mail forwarding and they're going to be virtual addresses if they're set up to organize the right way. And that's going to be like an option. I'm going to go through how we help our clients do it at the end. The next would be like a co-working space. If you rent a WeWork, everyone knows it's co-working. It works for some things. It doesn't work for others. It's better than a virtual address. It's more expensive. The con is it's more expensive. The pro is it's better. You can say, oh, I rent a desk. This is my WeWork. It's great. You know, they'll forward the mail and it's like a real place, but it's also a real half place is co-working. And I don't know if WeWork's still there, but they have the Regis as well. So the pro is more, it can be better. Con is it's more expensive. I do have clients that use those occasionally and come in with those addresses, and it seems to work kind of fine. The next one is renting a real office. If you rent an office, that's cool. You face potential risks having a permanent establishment in the US and actually being subject to tax in the US, especially for my non-resident viewers. It's going to cost a lot more, and you still have to have someone pick up the mail. So that's kind of annoying, but it is a really good option for getting a decent, solid address. What we've been doing is I have like, for our clients, I have like 10 offices I use. Really, they're small, cheap, boring, empty offices, but I use them for different clients. I'm not a huge business. I'm here helping you guys for free on the internet. They don't come up as mail forwarding. They don't come up as registered agents on the coded messages, and they're real offices, and I alternate between those with my clients. I'm often getting more offices, and that's been working because I have someone who checks the mail, forwards the mail. It's like mail forwarding, but it's not really a mail forwarding service. It's really just you using your accountant's address. You need these addresses for a couple different things, which I kind of skipped over in the beginning. And I skipped over 2 big things. The main points here, avoid PO boxes. Number 2, not all addresses and address services are the same. The best one is to have a real business address and a real personal address when you're applying for accounts. Now, what's this for? This is for bank accounts. You need a personal address and a business address. If you're coming to Chase, they want you to have a personal address in the US and a business address in the US. That's kind of changed. Most banks in the US, when you come in, are going to want a personal and a business address. You can't say I live in Spain. They want to see an address in the US. Generally speaking, some will make exceptions. Some will fill it out differently on the application. Depends on which guy you get helping you at the bank. But generally, if you're coming in with a proof of address at a residential spot in the US, a sublease, generally all utilities are included in the leases at apartments that I've rented before. So I get no utility bill. I have a sublease. And then when you get that account open, you can use the bank statement. I have other videos about that. But you need this for banks, personal and business, brokerage accounts, payment processors, everything that you apply for, you're going to have to identify yourself and your business. So this address hits on everything. And it goes into what I talked about in the last video, developing your risk profile. Good addresses, lower risk profile, higher chance of getting the account approved and getting the account operating and working. The last one is for like IRS filing. So even if you wanted to use registered agents, we often, when we file taxes for clients, use our office address for the IRS letter so we get the notices if they come in. This is the address video. This is the breakdown. It helps to have a good address, but if you just want to open a Mercury account, you may not need a good address. It's just like, what happens if they close that account down? What happens if you do the application wrong? You're stuck. I'm gonna put out a video, some more videos about applying for these accounts as non-residents with registered agent addresses, with good addresses, and like and subscribe. If you want us to help you get this stuff set up, you want us to get off YouTube and get into business, and you want to just work with us right away, I'm happy to work with you. JamesBakerCPA.com/schedule is in the description. Like, subscribe. I'll see you guys later. Thanks for being here. Hopefully this is helpful. Comment any feedback. See you later.